All right, feels like it's gonna be another extremely hot one today, but I'm out here trying anyways, and I'm not sure if this video is gonna be that helpful to many, but it will be for some. So I get a lot of questions about my camera setups, so I figure I'd just do a whole walkthrough, break down how each one's set up, and list each part that makes it all work. I think the camera stuff is really important. A lot of people disagree, but I constantly review footage to assure myself that what I think happened actually did happen. It's real easy to be like, oh yeah, and then this and this and this and this, and then you look back at the footage, that's not what happened at all. It's fascinating. It's weird how our minds kind of warp things. The footage doesn't lie. So it's a huge tool if you're trying to find ways to improve your game, whether what boat position works, you think you were here, but then the footage actually shows you were here, you think you were retrieving a certain way, or you think you imparted some action when you actually just kept a straight retrieve, or you did impart action. Camera stuff is an extremely useful tool. So, like I said, I'm just gonna go through it from front of the boat to the back of the boat. So, let's do it. So up here in the front, I'm going to just go through the basics. So what I've done down here is there is a Ram diamond base B-ball mount that I have just screwed into the actual metal Hummingbird mount. And then that's a small double arm that goes to another Ram B-ball, which is a rail mount. I believe that one is the medium size. So that connects into a carbon fiber arm that also has another Ram B-ball medium length double arm that connects to another rail mount. The reason why I have two different mounts coming off of this one base is so that it's actually held in place pretty well. If it's not, it ends up flopping around because the weight of this stuff up here is quite heavy to be held on these little Ram double arm sockets. So we have a long Ram socket, B-ball, a short one, another short one on a carbon fiber arm, and that goes up to a Ram B-ball action camera mount, which is obviously the GoPro mount. And then sitting on top of all that, I have a GoPro Hero 7 that is inside a Ulanzi aluminum frame that has the built-in cold shoe mounts to it, which allows me to put on a little extender. It's a custom homemade thing. I can't even explain it. It's real handcrafted. That then holds on another cold shoe rail a Rode Video microphone with the dead cat on there. This helps me get clean audio. GoPros are notorious for horrible audio. I mean, that's just an action camera in general, but I really want clean audio, and so I have that Rode Video Micro on there. It's phantom powered. It's powered off of the GoPro itself using the GoPro 3.5 millimeter jack, which is this part that's coming out of the side of the camera, and it goes down into this little box. The GoPro plugs into that along with its power source. So you basically get through the GoPro 3.5 millimeter port, jack, whatever it's called, you get a power port and a 3.5 millimeter microphone port. The power source from that is just running off of a USB 3.0 3-foot cable, Anchor cable. That's the brand, Anchor. That just runs down. That cable is running all the way around, coming up under here to right here. I have a Ram mount large cell phone holder that's held in just with the GoPro sticky mount, and Ram action camera mount basically has the GoPro mount set up in it that goes to a B-ball. That's what this large cell phone holder clamps onto that B-ball with the little short socket arm. This Anchor battery pack is the Power Slim 10,000 PD. That's what it is, Power Slim 10,000 PD, which will basically give me a full day on the water plus some, depending on how long you're fishing each day, but it will last an entire day. And that just runs and powers that GoPro all day long. Now, a trick that I learned from the bros that are fishing in super hot places is a problem I always ran into with the GoPros. They overheat, but little heads up from Keith just said, dude, take the battery out and just run it straight off your power source. That battery, once you remove it, the camera doesn't overheat anymore. He was right. I was hesitant to do that for a long time because the old ones, the cable wasn't in there solid enough for you to do that. It would disconnect and then you just had no picture anymore and you wouldn't even know it. So I always, in the older Hero 4s, I had to always have the battery in while the power source was connected, but it never overheated. So Hero 7s, I'm sure probably newer models, probably got to do the same thing. That's the front setup right there. Solid setup. It's in a good location to cover the front of the boat. And it's a little tight though. It kind of crops my head or my feet, so I got to be a certain distance back, but it does the job and stays relatively out of the way. That's that right there. Let's go on back over here. This is a relatively new setup, but it's the GoPro Max. The reason why I switched over to this, it used to be just a Hero 7 in here and an aluminum frame, but the reason why I switched over is I want to have that option to get a full view. I was tired of always kind of missing certain shots that were off to the side of the boat. The Hero Max allows me to get basically 270 degrees of what I'm looking for. So that's why I switched to it. The only real thing that's going on here is I have the sticky mount for the GoPro. Again, going on that little Ram action camera mount. It's a B-ball going to the double socket arm, B-ball, and then again the Ram ball action camera mount. This is the GoPro Max. Again, I'm running it with no battery, but I did buy a replacement door that Ulanzi makes. It's the Ulanzi GM2 GM-2. It's an aluminum door. It actually allows the camera to be completely sealed up, but it has a hole so that you can actually still run the power to it. Huge benefit right there. And then the power source on this is the older battery packs that I was always using. I've just kind of burned through them over the last couple of years. They do wear out eventually, but this is the Anchor 26,000 power core. It's a great battery. It's a lot bigger than the newer ones. The newer ones are basically the size of an iPhone. This one's a lot bigger, but it does the job. And it's just running off a 3-foot Anchor USB 3.0. Pretty simple. And again, that will run all day long. Quite simple. It's over here. It gives me this whole side view that you get those net shots. You can see bites that are taking place out over here. Let's go to the console now. So over here on the console, I pretty much have the exact same thing set up over there. It's a GoPro Max. It's got the Ulanzi aluminum door that allows for the camera to be sealed up, but power running to it. It's on a double socket arm, a Ram double socket arm. And then I have that diamond ball base mounted to the unit bracket. It's running off a USB 3.0 3-foot cable, the Anchor cable again. Let me slide on over here so you can kind of get a look down on it. It's like that. And that's mounted the exact same way as the front diamond ball base is. It's just held in with some stainless steel screws, some washers, all that good stuff. This is just real simple. Console mount, it's just running down there, 3-foot cable, and I just have a USB Anchor power source. It's just a SIG port, USB, plugs right in, and then just goes into my little 12 volt port right there. That's real simple and straightforward. Again, it will run all day long. Now, probably the main feature that most people would look for, this is number one angle. This is the most important angle, I think, as a starting position, that overall view. But truthfully, they don't really make anything out there that works for guys on a variety of boats. It's really kind of a nightmare. You kind of got to get lucky, or you really got to think about it, or you got to end up drilling into your boat to hold these things in position. So I understand why a lot of guys don't do it. You know, there are other brands that make things like YOLO Tech that make something run off your nav lights ports, but no disrespect, I'm just not a huge fan of that side angle out there. I prefer things to be centered. Maybe that's just the way my brain works, but I like things to be centered up. So I got kind of lucky with this one, and I actually recently upgraded it. I had a very similar system, but it had a lot more ram mount clamps and stuff going on with a tripod leg, a carbon fiber tripod leg. But just recently, this little bell went bing in my brain, and I went, let's see if that broken power pole spike fits into that hole. Holy cow, it does. So it's just friction holding it in there, but it works great. So I'll walk you through it. This is the pole itself, is an old broken power pole spike that I actually cut off. I cut off the top of it that was like broken. It fit perfectly into the top of my Ranger boat seat. That screws in down here into the base. So it screws in. That's gonna keep it there rock solid all day long. I'm not gonna get a bunch of swaying. I'm not gonna get some rotation out of it. None of that. It's in there tight. And that is a big deal, because you don't wanna get some waves and then the boat starts rocking, and before you know it, you look back and your camera's pointed that way. I've had that happen before. That's why over the years I've really kind of developed solutions through trial and errors that actually work. Camera itself that's sitting up on top, it's a Hero 7 black. Again, on the Ulanzi aluminum frame for the Hero 7 blacks. It's running off the same 3.5 millimeter jack from GoPro that allows me to run a microphone and power the camera at the same time. Again, I want the microphone on there to give me good audio even though it's windy out. So this really cuts down on all the wind noise, gives you clear voice audio without all that. Now, if you hear in my video still, that means it was really windy. Those gusts were really whipping through. There's only so much that this can knock down, but it knocks down a fair amount of that wind noise. I have my 3-foot Anchor USB 3.0 cable running down, which I've taped to the pole so I don't get a cable flopping around. And that's just going down here to a SIG USB port. That goes into the female 12-volt USB port, which I have taped down, and it's taped down to the pedestal seat base. You get a lot of extra cord here, so I have that zip tied up tight. And that just runs to some crocodile clamps going back to the batteries, which we'll take a look at right now. So if you just see it run down there, the clamps are just going off that battery. And that will give me all day battery. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. That's the camera setups I use. This has probably evolved the most over time through trial and error. But I got a setup right now that I'm really happy with. Kind of lucked out on it that the busted power pole spike actually fit into there. The previous setup was okay. You get a little bit of like wonkiness, not when you're on the water, but just in transport that you constantly had to adjust. But this is pretty much it. It's just a straight up pole. It's rock solid, and it just screws right into the base. And I get the best overall view. I don't have it super high up. I don't need it that high up. I just need to see myself, the water, and the surrounding area. Stuff on the side, GoPro Maxes, that's a new thing. Be working through that. And then the bow setup. Both the front and the back have the microphones because then I get good audio coming from either direction. I can talk up there or I can talk back here and I'm covered. I'll go over the basic settings I use too for the camera. Maybe that'll be helpful, and maybe talks about some plus and minuses that I have noticed over time. The camera settings that I use, and I've used them for a long time, but I noticed with the Hero 7 Black, I feel like the quality just isn't as good, surprisingly, as my Hero 4 was on the exact same settings. It's a little bit grainier. When you zoom in on the picture, it looks a little bit more digital, pixelated. I don't understand it. I'm not a pixel peeper, but I just noticed that. But maybe they've addressed that issue in the Hero 8 or the 9. I'm not quite sure. But the settings I use is 1080, that's HD, which is 1920 by 1080. I've recently switched up to 2.7K, but I've been shooting at 1080 for a long time. 1080, I'm shooting 16:9. I also use the Pro Tune in flat, and my sharpness is at medium. I leave it on auto white balance strictly because of the clouds and all this stuff that kind of moves through. It can be a little bit of a headache here and there because I got to adjust my white balance in post, but I deal with it. That's years and years of skateboarding and getting multiple clips from other filmers. It's kind of par for the course. It could make my life a lot easier if I had to set the white balance at, say, like 55 or 4,000 or whatever it might be, 32, but I just leave it on auto. My exposure settings, I actually do it minus 0.5. I tend to notice footage gets overexposed in some weird ways, like your white shirts or your hands, and mine right now are probably actually overexposed right now, even though I have the setting adjusted. If I go too dark, then everything else, the blacks on me are going to start to be underexposed, and I notice on GoPros you really can't gain much out of that in post. You start getting a lot of grain and a lot of color variation and artifacting out of that. For what they are, GoPros are really an amazing tool, especially considering the cost and the versatility. I have my little issues with them, but for the most part, they are the best action camera on the market for filming yourself fishing. Last, the way I control all these cameras, unlike the Hero 4s, the Hero 7s, and the GoPro Maxes, is all done through my iPhone in the GoPro app. I can just sync the cameras, which most of you should do if you have an iPhone and a GoPro. Then you can delete clips, format the memory cards, all that throughout the day. Right now, my GoPros have about 4.5 hours of space. When you're shooting in 1080, if you have a 256 gigabyte card, you should get about 6 hours of record time before you have to delete anything. What's up, little bros? You guys are getting all chatty Cathy over here on me. That's pretty much it. The higher the resolution that you shoot, the shorter amount of, holy cow, dude. Hey! Anyways, let's just wrap it up because these chatty girls back here, if you have a question, leave it down there in the comments. I'll do my best to answer it. And yeah, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, share, and slide on over to our website. Sign up for our email newsletter if you haven't already. And we always appreciate the support. Visit our web store. And until next time, bye.